One of the most important principles for effective PowerPoint presentation design is the principle of consistency. Not only do your fonts need to be consistent throughout the presentation, your colors should be consistent throughout the presentation, and even the positioning of elements on your slide should be consistent from slide to slide through your deck. One of the easiest ways to ensure consistency throughout a presentation is to use a custom slide master. In this screencast video, I'm going to be showing you how to use the slide master in PowerPoint to ensure a consistent look and feel throughout your presentation. Let's turn our attention to the PowerPoint interface. As you can see, I've got a new blank presentation open in Microsoft PowerPoint 2013. Today we're going to be developing a custom slide master. Now what the slide master does in PowerPoint is it specifies the layout and design of each type of slide that you might use in a presentation. You may not have seen this before, but the layout tool here provides you with 9 basic organization slides for the types of information that you might want to present in a typical presentation. When we edit the slide master, we're actually going to be editing the way that each of these types of layouts looks in our presentation. And by doing that, we can produce a professional but consistent aesthetic design for our presentation. For the sake of example, I'm going to be developing a slide master for use by Taco Bell, one of my favorite corporations. So let's get started. In order to view the slide master so that you can edit the layouts, colors, fonts, and overall aesthetic feel of your slide, go to View and then choose Slide Master. Now what you'll find on the left here is all of the layouts that are available to you that we saw earlier in that layout tool. So in the slide master, as we go through and edit each of these layouts, we're changing the organization and formatting of all of the future slides that we will develop in a presentation. So take a look at this. There are 2 key types of slide masters that you'll see here. You'll see the theme slide master, or what I like to call the Big Daddy master, and then you'll see all of the different layout masters. Any changes that you make to formatting in the Big Daddy master will be duplicated in all of the smaller layout masters. So for example, we talked about the principle of consistency related to fonts. If you want to have consistent fonts throughout your entire presentation, then make the change to the title fonts in your Big Daddy master and the body font in your Big Daddy master, and those will be duplicated throughout the rest of the slides. Let me show you. So here is our title slide, and if we click in here and go to the Home tab, we can see that this is using Calibri Light for headings, and it is using Calibri Body for body text. Not surprising. We'll find this through most of these slides. Now what we can do in our slide master is we can actually edit the fonts for the entire presentation by changing them in the Big Daddy master. So if we go to the top, maybe we want to use something that's a little bit thicker in our master title style. So let's try changing it to something else, like Georgia. I like the Georgia font. That'll give us a nice thicker font in the heading. If we change it in the body to something else, let's say to Verdana, since we've done it in the slide master, the Big Daddy slide master, we can now look through the rest of our presentation and we see that we now have Georgia and Verdana throughout our presentation. Now, if we had just made a change on one of the layout masters, that would not translate throughout the presentation. So some things you always want to change on the big slide master for consistency with all of your other layouts. Things like backgrounds and colors, often you want to be different depending on the slide. So let's go to our most commonly used slide, which is going to be the title and content layout. This is the bread and butter slide that most presentations are going to use for the bulk of the slides. There are a few things that we want to do to make this an effective title and content layout. The first thing that we might want to do is we might want to reformat the title font so that it will work better for an assertion evidence model layout. You'll notice right now that the text size is 44, which is a little bit too large if we're going to be putting a full sentence headline assertion into our title. So one thing that we'll want to do is maybe drop the size down. I typically think that 32 works pretty well in Georgia for an assertion evidence model headline. And since that's going to be the default for all of our title and content slides, 32 looks pretty good. The other thing that we might want to do is, for consistency, we might want to always align the text either at the top or the bottom of the text box. So we can do that here with align text. I'm going to align it at the bottom so that if I have a headline that's just a single line, it's at the bottom. If I have a headline that's 2 lines, it'll move up and start in the middle of that box. I might find that I'm wasting a little bit of space on this slide, so I might decide that I want my headline to be a little bit thinner, just high enough for 2 lines of text, since I know I'll never have more than 2 lines of text because I'm using the assertion evidence model. So I can then make my body a little bit taller, and I might even decide that I want to have my title and body a little bit wider on the slide. Now, one trick you can use, if you hold down the Shift key and click on the body, you'll select both of them, and that way, if you want to make them a little bit wider, you can do that. Let's put them all the way out to the grid lines here. If you don't see the grid lines on your computer, go to the View tab and just check grid lines, and that'll make them appear. Those are really handy when you're doing design things in PowerPoint because it'll allow you to align things appropriately. You can also go over here and we'll drag this one out so that it goes out to that grid line as well. That'll give us a little bit more space. Now, depending on your organization, you may have a need for putting dates and footers and page numbers on slides. I typically don't like to clutter my slides with those, so I'm just going to delete those entirely from this particular layout. And then I will take this and drag it down so that it matches approximately the amount of white space that we see at the top. So I'm pretty happy with this particular layout. Another thing that I might want to do is I might want to use my organization's colors in my slide. So maybe I'll create a box that will set off the title from the body of the slide. There are a couple of ways that I can do that. Well, one thing that I find is really easy is I'll go to the Insert menu and I'll find a shape, and we'll just make a rectangular shape, a box, that will function as a piece to set apart the title from the rest of the slide. Now we'll notice that we now have created this box on top of the text. So what do? Well, we're going to right click on that box and we're going to use Send to Back, and that'll put the text back in front of it. Now this blue here, this is the default that PowerPoint chose for me, but that's not really a Taco Bell color. So one thing that I might do is grab some colors from the Taco Bell logo and use them in my slide. To do that, I'm first going to insert a picture, and I have the Taco Bell logo already saved here. So I'm just going to grab this and throw it in here. I'm not going to leave it on the slide, but I want it here so that I can grab some colors from it. So one thing that I might do here is I'm going to right-click on this shape. And anytime you have a shape that you want to adjust the properties of, you can right-click on it. And I have fill options right here. So I'm going to use the eyedropper since I want my Taco Bell specific colors. And that basically gives me the opportunity to click on any element on my slide and take the color from that. So once I clicked on that, you can see that now my heading background is the same blue as what we see in the Taco Bell logo. Maybe I want to also do some kind of outline. Maybe I'll outline it in the Taco Bell pink. I'm going to use the eyedropper again and use the pink. And that's a very thin outline right now, so maybe I want to change that. If I right-click and I do Format Shape, I'm going to get all the options related to the fill and line. So we can see that my fill is a solid fill, and that's my Taco Bell color. My line here is a solid line. We have the color right, but I'm going to make it a little bit wider so that it's a little bit more noticeable to a person viewing the slide. 2.75. Very nice. Now, it's possible that I could get away with doing the pink on the blue, but I think that's not going to be quite high enough contrast. So I'm going to stick with a safe font color. I'm going to select this font. I'm going to go to my Home tab, and I'm going to make that just white text on the blue background. You can see that. That's nice and easy to read. One thing that I talked about earlier that might be really nice for setting it off just a little bit more is using the text shadow style. And you can see that does make it just a little bit crisper and easier to read. So I really like this for my master title style. I think that looks pretty good. One thing that we might want to go back and do now that we have this developed, is we'll go and we will use these elements in different shapes to create all of the other layouts that we might want to use in our presentation. So I'm going to cut, pressing Control X, I'm going to cut this graphic off of my title and content slide. But I think that is a graphic that I might want to have on my actual presentation title slide. So I'm going to make it quite a bit smaller. Remember, we can always shrink graphics, but we can never grow them. Okay, so if you have a high resolution image, you can always make it smaller, but you should never, ever, ever make it bigger. So we've got our master content. One thing that I might do, if I like this blue and pink, bringing in the colors of the Taco Bell logo, I can copy that shape and paste it into my master title style. And maybe I don't quite like the positioning of this, and I'll move it down a little bit. We can use the bring to front to bring that text up in front of the blue. And now I can take my blue and size it appropriately so that it is behind my master title. Okay, so I'm going to select this. Now, one trick that I'll show you, when you have your fonts set the way that you like them, you can use what's called the Format Painter. So if I select this, it's the right color, it has the shadow applied. It's also going to apply the size, but we can change that. I'm going to click on Format Painter and then move back to my master and click and highlight all of that text, and you'll see that it formatted it exactly like it is over here. Now that's not quite what I want. I probably still want all of this text to be centered, so I'm going to change it back to centered. I definitely want it to be larger than 32, so maybe we'll do our master title size around 54, and we probably want this aligned in the middle since this is the master title slide. That gives us a pretty good look for our master. Some others that we might want to adjust might be our master title style, might be our two content layout. So this is if we're showing two things side by side. And what we can do is we can take these elements that we've already sized and formatted appropriately, and we can just place them onto this slide. So this is in the wrong spot. Let's send to back. There we go. This one is formatted incorrectly, so I'm just going to delete it since I already have one up here that's formatted appropriately. One of the nice things about copying and pasting inside of PowerPoint is that if you copy and paste from slide to slide, it's going to paste in exactly the right spot. So if I go here and paste, that's going to show up exactly where it should be. These two, I'm just going to drag the edges out so that they line up with the edges of my extended title. There we go. And I think we're looking pretty good here. Since I'm not going to use the footer and date and any of those elements, I'm just going to remove those. And we'll hold down Control or Shift to select both of those. Drag them down so that they are consistent with the other slides. Now I could go through all of these layouts and customize them all so that I get a consistent look and feel. I will do the title only, so I'm going to copy my shape here and put it on the title with no content slide. Remember to right click and send to back. And then I'm going to delete this text, and since I already have it formatted appropriately up here, I'm just going to copy it from here, if I can grab it. Copy and paste. There we go. Now we have that is consistent from slide to slide. One thing I do like to have is a blank black slide in every slide master. The blank black slide gives you the opportunity to just insert a slide that won't have anything on it. There are often times in your presentation where you don't want the audience looking at anything but you as the presenter. So to do that, we'll right click on our white slide. We'll do Format Background, and we will change that solid fill to black. That'll give us a nice blank black slide. So now we have our basic title, title with content, title with to content, title only, and black slide. Now, if I were preparing this for a client, I would probably go through and make sure that every single element in the slide master had a particular, had the formatting applied to it. In this particular case, since I'm just doing it as an example, I'm not going to use any additional slides, so I'm going to just stick with it just like this. So we're going to go to Slide Master, and we're going to close Master View. And what we'll find is that now our layouts show the custom layouts that we've developed. So I can start building my presentation. The future of the Gordita. I would love to give that presentation someday. I'm going to add my presenter information. All right. And then we'll move on and we'll add a new slide. By default, it's going to default to the title and content because that's probably what we want to do. The future of the Gordita is a rich and promising one. I'm not sure how I'm going to fill in content for this, but let's say that that's what I wanted to have as my first slide. Now, as I insert new slides for any of these, I can use my new layouts that I've developed and change the layout of any slide to any of those that I have set up in my Slide Master. So the Slide Master is a really handy tool. It gives you the ability to very easily create a custom view for your presentation that reflects your own personality or the personality of your organization, and that will give you a very consistent look and feel throughout your presentation. You will need to develop a slide master on several of the presentations that you will give later on in the semester. So be sure that you will need to develop a custom slide master for several of the presentations that you will be giving in this class. So it would be a good idea, after watching this video, to follow along and create your own custom slide master. You don't necessarily have to do the same things to your slides as what I did to this, but at a minimum, you should create something that reflects your personality or the personality of an organization that you may be representing in your presentations.